the first of two that we're having in the month of May to introduce you, if you don't already know, to people, candidates running for the office of governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, and attorney general. Again, it's a very exciting year. We had a lot of caucus here a couple of months ago, a couple of years ago, we had an impressive attendance of that. We elected 21 delegates to the convention next month. We're very excited as those who were elected and are ex officio delegates to be part of that process. Again, thank you for coming. I want to have people, the executive board of the ward committee, introduce themselves.
Daniel Toscano.
Marianne D'Amato.
Blake Weber.
So tonight's gonna, we like to keep to a nice strict schedule. If you've ever been to some of our ward meetings. We're gonna, before I go, a few introductions of some other friends and candidates who are here. I just wanted to go over how tonight is gonna work. We have a schedule of candidates that include Juliet Kayyem, who is a candidate for governor, Mike Lake, lieutenant governor, James Arena DeRosa for lieutenant governor, Steve Grossman, candidate for governor, and our current state treasurer. Joe Avalone, who is running for governor, Steve Kerrigan for lieutenant governor, and Laura Haley for attorney general. That is the order which we will go this evening. We have allotted a total of 12 to 15 minutes per candidate to speak, and that includes a 3 to 5 minute introduction by them. And remarks, welcome remarks, and whatever they want to say. And we'll reserve some of the rest of the time for questions by the members of the ward committee who are here, as also the general public. Please raise your hand. And when doing so, please stand, or you don't have to stand, or if you can't, please stand and say your name and where you are from, or where you live. And I just ask that all attendees be cordial and professional to our fellow Democrats. Some of us in the audience may be with particular candidates already, and that's, we appreciate that and we expect that. But yes, and I request that all questions be thoughtful and constructive when you are asking. Does anyone have any questions about how this is going to work? Questions in general? So I just wanted to introduce a very dear friend of mine. He's our current state representative. He will be again because he has no opponent this year. Thank you for casting, and I have to say, it's well deserved. We believe in elections, obviously in Massachusetts. We have so many over the past few years, but I think my friend Aaron is over the past 5 years. Next month will be 5 years that he will be a state representative for us. June, was it? From 18th to June 16th.
Early July.
I forget, that's my mother's birthday. She would not be happy. But that was one of her best gifts she ever said, was electing Aaron as state representative. I'm going overboard because he said I teased him at the caucus, so no. But my good friend Aaron Michaels.
First, I want to thank Jason, Blake, Daniel, and Marianne for putting this together today. This took a lot of work because everyone's got a lot of busy schedules going on with the campaign. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank everyone for being here. And lastly, I just want to thank all the candidates for coming tonight. I don't know because I only have a small district. Running for statewide is such a huge endeavor, and I know that times are short and everyone's got busy stuff, and so I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come down and speak to the ward and to these neighborhoods in downtown Boston. So thank you to all you that have shown up today, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. So a couple of other people who are here, and I'm missing any other elected officials who are here. I don't see any. I think our ward legislative delegation are running unopposed, or is Anthony an opponent?
Anthony is an opponent. Jay Livingstone, who represents Ward 3-5, Precinct 5, has a Republican that they don't know if they've certified them.
What about Sonia, Senator Diaz?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So I think it's a testament to the hard work that our delegation does on a daily basis. I don't care what the hell it said today, Aaron. So I have two people also running for county office here. Jeremiah Goodwin is running for Suffolk County Sheriff. And John Sepulveda, Suffolk County Register of Broker. Any other candidates for statewide or Suffolk County? Okay, so we'll most likely we'll be talking as a ward committee about scheduling a county and a House Senate delegation night. We'll actually reach out to your campaigns if we'd like to be at that. Thank you. So in the spirit of getting things along, we're going to go right. I'm going to introduce our first candidate, who is Julia Cam. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction. I got it off the website. And, so
I thought that's what my 5 minutes were for, so
Yeah.
you could go.
So I know I might cut into your 5 minutes.
No, that's
But, after,
I'm sick of hearing myself speak, except you can.
But so after Julia begins speaking, you're going to hear a little bell. That means like 3 minutes, and then you have 2 minutes left. It's like the Price is Right. So, but Juliet began her career as a civil rights attorney and later as a Homeland Security advisor to Governor Deval Patrick, where she oversaw the 8,000 plus member Massachusetts National Guard and the Commonwealth Strategic Security Planning. In 2008, she was chosen by President-elect Obama to be part of the transition team before being appointed by the President as Assistant Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. As Assistant Secretary, Juliet was responsible for the coordination between the federal government and state, local, and territorial partners on issues as varied as intelligence sharing, military affairs, immigration reform, and crisis response. Juliet has taught public safety in the military at Harvard's Kennedy School, served as a CNN analyst, and was a columnist for the Boston Globe, where she was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. She lives with her husband and their 3 children in Cambridge. So let us welcome Juliet. We're going to edit it a little.
I haven't checked it in a while. Actually, you just took my opening, so I'm going to just pretend like you ignored that. My name is Juliet Kayyem, and to be clear, it is pronounced, say I am for Kayyem, so it sort of rolls off the tongue. Go ahead, try it. Come on. I know, thank you. I heard there's a lot of undeclared delegates in the room or uncommitted, and you're my second favorite kind. And so I'm hoping to lure you to the other side. My name is Juliet Kayyem. I am the mother of 3 children. I am a devoted wife. I have been a public servant most of my career. I have been a writer and an author, a television analyst. I have been a teacher. I am the daughter of a Lebanese immigrant family married to a nice Jewish boy, raising 3 kids in an interfaith marriage. I am Massachusetts, just like you are, right? That diversity, that different experiences is what brings us together. The challenges we face in this state are opportunities. That's what I've always believed. And I always believe that government has the capacity to do good. But government also can do better. There is no finish line. There is no thank you very much, Deval Patrick, let's go to the other team. There's no we're done here, right? Or we've known these people long enough. This is a fight for our party. This is a fight for the future of Massachusetts, and I willingly join that fight because I believe in government. The challenges we face, education, infrastructure, climate change, a criminal justice system that's not serving your communities, my communities, veterans returning home from war, those challenges will only be solved by a complex and spirited attempt to harness the collective capabilities of all of our communities. That's what I've done all my career. As a civil rights attorney, I believe in access. I believe in opening the doors, leveling the playing field. That is the goal of government. But as a Homeland Security advisor, I also believe in building stronger and more resilient, making our infrastructure stronger, dealing with risk reduction, making us more prepared for the challenges that we face, whatever they may be. So I am out there talking about criminal justice reform and climate change adaptation, getting us ready for the 21st century. That is the obligation of the next governor. And that is what I have done all my career. My investments in the state, the way I think we need to think about the state, is investments in two different values that we hold: our people and our infrastructure, our built society. Whether it is our community colleges or workforce development, or as I said, prisoners coming back from coming out of prison, or veterans coming back from war, or immigrants who need driver's licenses or the capacity to get an education. That is what we invest in because as governor, as a state, we have no other options. Right? But we also must build stronger for the global economy that should and ought to be ours. Whether it is our ports and expanding them so that we can grab a global maritime economy, or our gateway cities and building out regional transportation authorities so that our inner cities there can grow, have a residential tax base, a business tax base. That is what we need to do for the future that we can grab. I know I am a different kind of candidate. I come with a background in both complex and crisis management, and that's what we look for in a governor. That is what I have done all my career. The vision I have for the state is that this state is the most welcoming, the most connected, and the most prepared for whatever comes our way. This is a fight. And the biggest problem Democrats are going to have is inertia, right? Or to assume that what Deval Patrick did was just, okay, that's great, and we can take it for granted. We can't. We have to keep pushing forward. There is no finish line. And that is the energy and excitement I want to bring to this race. I am the only candidate with executive leadership skills in both state and federal government. I obviously represent a new generation of leadership. I know this state. 351 cities and towns, serving as the governor's Homeland Security Advisor, thinking about regional solutions so that home rule does not confine us. Was that 3 or 2 or whatever?
You have a couple minutes.
Okay, so does not confine us. Coming up with solutions that cut across the boundaries of secretariats and local government and states. 2 presidents and this governor have asked me to do that. That is what we need. We need to think past the boundaries that confine us. And that is why I'm the candidate that has brought new issues to this debate. We are talking about criminal justice reform because I brought it to the table. Climate change, I'm looking literally 2 blocks away, worried because there's no time, right? I don't want to be the woulda, shoulda, coulda governor. We need to adapt, build different, think about regional solutions. Our veterans are returning home. I oversaw the National Guard as Homeland Security Advisor. I like to remind everyone that Scott Brown reported to me because I was a civilian head, just saying. And that is, they are coming back, and they are going to be with us for a long time with challenges that we don't know what to expect. And our Veterans Administration is not prepared for them. Immigrants and bringing them here, giving them a seat at the table. I am excited for the future of Massachusetts, and I'm excited because I'm looking over here as a mother. My goals as governor and my goals as a mother are relatively the same, right? I mean, we all want, as Democrats, we believe in access and we believe in our children, in the safety and security of our children. And we all want to leave this state, right, where our children are safe and secure, where their education is one that gives them creativity, but also gets them ready for a workforce that ought to be theirs, right? That leaves them with an infrastructure that is ready to take on a global economy and challenge and be competitive with 49 other states. And I want to leave them a state where they knew, right? They knew that we did our darndest not to stop them. That's what we are about as Democrats. That's what we are about as the Commonwealth. So thank you very much. My name is Juliette Kayyem.
Open first up to any ward committee members. I know they're all scattered.
That's specific.
Specifics.
Yes.
You have, over the past decade or so, been a supporter of George W. Bush's torture program in your role in the federal government. Just wondering if you can address that for us.
And the question was at the beginning was, have I been?
Well,
Yeah. So this is a question I get occasionally. So let me tell you who I am. So I engage. No. Let me answer short. No. Okay. No. Torture, waterboarding. No. And it's a rumor mill started by supporters of other candidates. Whatever. No. And now let me answer your question. When 9/11 happened, I was in public safety and security. I stood up against the Bush administration. I opposed the war in Iraq. I was so adamant that they were on the wrong course that I got mailed faked anthrax while I was nursing a young child. I pushed back on the unlawful interrogation and coercive interrogation techniques of the Bush administration, so much so that when Deval Patrick became governor, he asked me to be his Homeland Security Advisor. And when President Obama became president, he asked me. They knew exactly who I was. That is who I am. But I engage. I don't sit idly by on my little Twitter and Facebook accounts accusing people of stuff. I engage. And I fought back and I tried to come up with a new legal regime for a different kind of war. And I worked with our military and I oversaw the National Guard, and that is who I am. And no.
Tracy.
Yes.
Listen, but when you ask questions, say your name and where you live generally.
Oh, I'm Tracy Plains, and I live in Bullfinch Triangle.
Okay.
So, you talked a little bit about the reform you want to do for the criminal justice system. Could you talk a little bit more about
Absolutely.
that?
And this is, so I've been to 44 other states and 50 other countries, and people say, why are you running for governor? I said, it's actually relevant to running for governor because you can learn from other states. So when I thought about running and looking at the budget, you think, okay, what can I do, right? They're all telling me I can't do anything. So the other states are changing the way they approach law and order, which is you put fewer people in jail, decriminalize marijuana, nonviolent criminal offenses, you find alternatives. The experience of corrections is about corrections because you can't throw away generations of minority men and women and think that society is okay. And then on the far end, you can reduce recidivism if you think about community development and familial unification. Really, it's about if people go back to a community that feels like they want them, and workforce development. So other states, more conservative states, have done this successfully. They've saved money. We have $1 billion potentially budgeted by 2020 for new prison construction in Massachusetts. We are so old school. We need to learn from other states. They are doing it better, and this is where I differ from other candidates in the race. The status quo cannot hold. Monetarily, morally, it cannot hold. One of the reasons, and so those are the investments I make. Some require legislation, some I can do as the head of corrections and parole, and I was part of public safety when I served as the governor's Homeland Security advisor. It's exciting too, because our communities want it, right? You think we're doing Brockton any favors by locking up people? I mean, these are the changes that are happening out in communities that make it really exciting, then also save money for universal pre-K investments or workforce development investments. This can be done, and I'm telling you, I am the Democrat who can do it. The states that have done it have one thing in common: Republican governors. Why? Because Republican governors don't worry about being called soft on crime. I've spent a life in kind of harsh world of bad things and bad people, and you just can't pin that on me. I know bad, and it's one reason why this effort. The Herald had a headline recently that said I was Charlie Baker's worst nightmare, and it's because I would be very appealing to people who might look at public safety issues like this, criminal justice reform, and other issues, including our independence in the state. It's the issue we can do. It is, and shame on Democrats for not doing enough. Yes.
Stephen Chan, I live in the South End.
Yes.
So you've referenced immigrants, and
Yes.
it's an issue that's really passionate to me. Latino and Asian Americans are the fastest growing racial ethnic communities in the nation and in the state. But I wanted to ask you about this because it's a little bit different than the criminal justice
Yes.
reform issue. I actually think there's a moral and economic imperative
Yeah.
there. You can actually address it, and actually there's a cost savings argument. In a lot of these other issue areas, and immigrants aren't the only ones, there's not a direct line to cost savings or an economic argument. It requires public investment
Yeah.
and real political will to say we're putting a stake in our ground around our values, to fund things like closing the achievement gap for English language learners, adult basic ed, thinking about English for speakers of other languages. So the question is simple: how do you pay for it?
Right. So I agree with you on the sentiment. I don't know if I agree with you that we can't make the economic argument. The reason why is this, and part of it is different classes of immigrants. I worked strongly on comprehensive immigration reform with Obama. I stood with Governor Patrick pushing back on the New Bedford raid. I'm the daughter of an immigrant family, so you had me at hello. In terms of what we need to do. But I actually think the economic argument can move people as it is moving a number of people in the political space, because how can we talk about raising the minimum wage in this country or in this state and have a black market of undocumented workers, right? I mean, in other words, part of what we need to do is say that the investments we make in education and workforce development for immigrants, whether they're documented or not, are actually investments for all of us. First of all, the skills that immigrants have, and there's different, there's H-1B visa immigrants, there's undocumented immigrants, and then all sorts of people in between. The investments we make are actually investments for everyone rising. Plus, if you look at the gateway cities, it is simply clear that women and minority businesses are the ones that are going to move, sort of bring economic development to those areas. So it is an investment, and we make all the right arguments in that regard. People will say, my kids are in public school, and with diverse languages and backgrounds. I have one daughter who's not, and the experience. I have 3 kids, so the boys, and the experience that the boys have by the multi-languages and the diversity, I think is going to make them more nimble for the future, right? Because it's the way the world is, and we just can't view Massachusetts as parochial anymore. I mean, we'll lose in all sorts of ways. So, any other questions?
It's a quick one, yes.
Quick, answer long too.
Well, it's a quick answer.
I'll do it. No.
All right, well then.
Okay,
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you very much.
So our next candidate is Mike, Lieutenant Governor. Mike was born and raised in Melrose, Mass. We began volunteering for local community organizations, and he now serves on the boards of many committees throughout the greater Boston area. He is a graduate of Northeastern University and served as a special assistant for White House operations in the Clinton administration. He was the Director of Development for the United Way of Massachusetts, Bay and Merrimack Valley. And he raised millions of dollars in that role for the agency's causes. He is currently President and CEO of Leading Cities. And Mike works with city leaders from around the United States and the world to solve the challenges that communities face. His ongoing efforts with world trading partners, including Spain, Portugal, and Ireland, have realized more jobs here in Massachusetts. And he has hiked the Himalayas. So let's welcome Mike Lake.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Lake, as you heard, and I'm here because I'm running to be our next Lieutenant Governor. And as I tell people across the Commonwealth, I'm not running to fill an office. I'm running to make a difference. To make a difference in the lives of the people that we all care most about. It's about our friends, our family, and our neighbors. To me, that means we need to deliver on what I call the Massachusetts Promise. The promise of economic empowerment and social justice through high-quality education for every child in the Commonwealth. The promise of safe communities so that they can go to and from school without fear of violence. And the promise of jobs that pay a livable wage. Because every working family in Massachusetts that is working hard, playing by the rules, should be able to afford to live in Massachusetts. See, the Massachusetts Promise is the promise that my family was built on. When my nana immigrated here from Rome, my parents graduated high school, there were limited opportunities, but there were opportunities. There were opportunities for them to survive in the 20th century. My parents did not have that opportunity to go to college. So at the age of 18, my father decided he was going to start his own business, heating, ventilating, air conditioning company. Now he knew full well at the age of 18 that nobody in their right mind would do business with him. So he named his company Edward H. Lake and Sons. It was just a little bit of a crack in the door that he needed to start, to get his take at the American dream. And he built that business for 18 years. Now, tragically, at the age of 36, my father went to bed one night, and he never woke up. My mother became a 32-year-old single mom, 5-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter, and an air conditioning company she knew nothing about. Still, with just a high school education, she was able to keep that company going. Eventually, she sold it and worked all kinds of jobs just to keep our family afloat. My mother's sacrifices, my father's sacrifices before. The investment made in me through public education in particular gave both my sister and I the opportunity to survive, to thrive. I became the first in my family to go to college. Went right here to Northeastern University. Where I'm proud to say that it's because of that education that I've had opportunities, from serving President Clinton to my current role as the President and CEO of Leading Cities, an international organization I founded to partner with cities around the world, recognizing that cities everywhere share the same common challenges. And that by working together, we can not only identify the best practices and the solutions to those challenges, but that we can share them and advance all of our cities faster and further. So World Leading Cities is really about exchanging best practices, creating business development opportunities so that we can strengthen our economy and create jobs in the process. And it's about creating government-to-government cooperation. In a nutshell, it's exactly the same as the Massachusetts Promise. It's about creating a secure community for us to live in. So Leading Cities is really the inspiration I have for my vision for the Lieutenant Governor's Office, to be a partner to our next governor. And by being a liaison to the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. Taking not only the opportunity to listen and be their access point to state government, but to take all that I've learned from working with cities in 9 different countries, sharing them, those best practices and solutions, so that our communities can be stronger. It's also about being a liaison to our legislators, working with them, because it's building that relationship that we can get the job done. And finally, it's about being a liaison to the world outside of Massachusetts, to sell the Commonwealth and all the assets we have here. You know, we have one of the broadest, deepest talent pools of almost any place on the planet. In the 21st century, we can't just operate in a global economy. We need to fully compete in that global arena, which means securing jobs, attracting new ones, retaining our talent, and providing opportunities for people young and old. I think that was my time, or how much time do I
You
have?
have 37 seconds.
All right. So in closing, I'm here to ask for your support. I'm here to ask for those of you who are going to the convention for your vote there. As you know, every candidate needs 15% on that first ballot. So I'm counting on that support. I'm asking all of you, whether it be at the convention in September, every time in between, and of course in November, to stand with me, to help me realize the Massachusetts Promise for every citizen of the Commonwealth. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your time.
So again, if you have questions, raise your hand, I'll call you, just state your name and general location where you live in. Address. Anyone? I'm going to start one off, actually, because some members of the Water Committee sent some in. We talked about being a partner with municipalities, and that is, I know Lieutenant Governor Murray did a good job at that. What is your plan or your vision to helping the city of Boston, obviously, but every municipality deal with the fiscal realities that they have to face? They're raising property taxes, at the same time relying on the state for more taxes, and entering the GIC. What do you see as a formula that can work for them to make them more stable, especially with their pension liability?
Wow, there's a lot to that question.
Oh, yeah,
I'll tell you, with Boston specifically, and this is an issue that is beyond the pay grade of the Lieutenant Governor, but I've been talking to Senator Warren about the challenges we have when it comes to challenges and opportunities we have when it comes to institutions of higher education. Mayor Menino was often quoted as saying that 52% of the city of Boston is non-taxable. So we have to cover 100% of the expenses with 48% of the revenue. That makes it a real challenge for Boston. So one of the challenges we have with our academic institutions is that the interests and needs of the institution are not aligned with the interests and needs of the community in which they reside. So instead of giving blanket tax-exempt status to institutions of higher education, to me, I think we need to restructure the way we invest in higher education. And this has to start at the federal level, of course. But I see it as an unfunded mandate. That blanket tax-exempt status requires the city of Boston to give up 52% of its, whatever portion of that is for institutions of higher education, to give up that income, that revenue. So what I'm looking at and have been talking to other leaders about is creating a tax credit system. So we'll use myself and my example at Northeastern. If Northeastern educates me and graduates me, and then I find a job here in the United States of America, Northeastern qualifies for a federal tax credit. Now, if that job happens to also be in Massachusetts, the state would give a tax credit. And finally, if I chose to live in the city of Boston and therefore paying property taxes either through rent or mortgage or whatnot, then the city would give Northeastern a tax credit. The importance of all of this is that we have aligned the interests and needs of the institution with the community. Because now the institution cares how many jobs exist in America, how many jobs exist here in the Commonwealth. They care about the crime rates in Boston, the quality of our public education. Because it's only with that that they're going to have the opportunity to have graduates stay and live in the city of Boston and get that tax credit. So that's one way, addressing some of the real issues that we have while not hurting the opportunities that institutions of higher education provide this city that we know so well.
Anyone else? Oh, shy. Connor, Julie, Ray? Oh, no. There's no one else. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
A little doorbell that's
You want to take a crack at the last name? Arena DeRosa.
Oh, I didn't finish it. I was going to do that. You hear my little doorbell, that's me coming in behind you saying you have a minute left in your remarks. So, James Arena DeRosa was born in Boston and raised in Walpole, Massachusetts. He is a graduate of Harvard University with a degree in anthropology. After graduating, James worked with United Farm Workers in community and campaign organizing, and later in the office of the Secretary of State of the Commonwealth. During his tenure as Director of Public Advocacy at Oxfam America, James worked with community leaders, public and private organizations, and government from over 40 countries in continents of Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean on issues related to emergency relief, human rights, child labor, and hunger. He later served as the New England Director of the Peace Corps in the Clinton administration, and focusing on the same goals here in the United States. In 2010, James was appointed the Northeast Regional Administrator of the USDA by the Obama administration, where he oversaw 15 federal food and nutrition programs and was responsible for a $12 billion annual budget. James and Lena, his wife, live in Halston with their 2 sons, Anthony and Alessandro. Welcome.
Well, thanks so much. I am delighted to be here. This is a little bit of my home away from home. I used to live on Charter Street, got married in St. Stephen's. My dad was from the West End, so it is great to be here. And thanks for giving some of my bio. It saves a little of my time in my speech. But as was said, I recently left the Obama administration. This campaign started in January, and I was the lead official for the Obama administration for all food and nutrition issues in the Northeast United States. I spent a lot of time with senior leaders throughout the Northeast region, but I also spent time out at food banks and health centers and clinics and schools, making sure that 1 in 4 Americans had enough food to eat during the greatest recession of our lifetimes, and also making sure that we were promoting healthier lifestyles. I have spent my whole life here. I grew up in a working middle-class, second-generation immigrant family, worked my way through Xavier and worked my way through Harvard. My sisters and I were, in fact, the first to graduate from college. I grew up in a home where we were taught to make a difference in the lives of others. And I was profoundly influenced by the events and gatherings of the 1960s, whether it was civil rights workers and freedom riders coming to our home, whether it was labor meetings, whether it was environmental meetings, Kennedy campaigns, all of that was ever present in my home. And all I ever wanted to do my whole life was to be a voice for the people who didn't have lobbyists on Capitol Hill or Beacon Hill. So after graduation, I did spend some time training with the farm workers. She's a son-in-law, actually. Had a leadership role at Oxfam America, where I created an advocacy program that took issues and put them in front of policymakers. That was kind of, advocacy was a dirty word at Oxfam 20 years ago. My legacy is that at that agency is that I created an advocacy program. Hunger is about politics, and it's about political will. I also was the lead official for the Clinton administration for the Peace Corps in the Northeast, sent thousands of American volunteers around the world, not only to serve in their communities, but to build their own skills. We live in a global economy. Part of Jack Kennedy's vision for the Peace Corps is that we needed to understand the rest of the world and how it lived. Cultural competency is a critical life skill for all of us in the months and years ahead. Now, my heart will always be in the community because I believe in that. But rest assured, I am comfortable in the corridors of power. At USDA, I negotiated with governors and cabinet secretaries. I testified before legislators. I worked with mayors and municipal leaders throughout the Northeast. I did lead a senior team of 15 senior managers, and I oversaw a $12 billion annual budget. And I would remind you that your lieutenant governor is the potential CEO of Massachusetts. But I've also served on my finance committee. I've worked in state government. I understand the really important relationship between the cities and towns and the state and the federal government. I see the lieutenant governor's role as two roles. It's a liaison to the cities and towns. It's a partner to the next governor of Massachusetts, Democratic governor. We have a few of them in the room. Hopefully one of them will get elected. One of the 5 will get elected. But I also will be an advocate, and I will speak up for the issues that I believe in and that I care about. There's the partnership piece, but there's also pushing for issues that you believe in. We do have time. I've got 3 issues that I care about. I care about a lot of different things: environment, sustainability, life sciences, our opportunities in biotech and health areas. But I have 3 issues. One's around food and nutrition. I'll end with that. I'm concerned we have too much focus on the MCAS. I'd like to see a more classical orientation to incorporating the whole child: arts, culture, sports, civics, and financial literacy. As a former union person and union negotiator, yes, we need a minimum wage. That's just a first step. If we're serious about building the middle class in America, we need a living wage. It's going to get time to get there. It has to be done in cooperation and collaboration with business. I have great support from the business community for this campaign as we continue to build. But I have spent a lot of time in food and nutrition, and I care a lot about it. First of all, we learned so much in the last 20 plus years on how the food we eat impacts our health. And we can save billions, not millions. That's the 3-minute bell.
No, you're good. 1 minute.
All right, billions of dollars in healthcare costs. But at the same time, we could create thousands of jobs for the Massachusetts economy. And something you might not be aware of, we have a plan for universal breakfast in Massachusetts. Massachusetts ranks 48th in the country for school breakfast. Can't imagine that with that poor. Every mom and dad and teacher and school nurse in America knows a hungry child can't learn, right? They're not ready to learn. So we have a proposal for universal school breakfast. Those kids are going to do better in school. They'll have less problems with discipline. And by the way, they'll do better on those standardized tests that everybody worries about. So I'm looking forward to your questions. Again, to close, my name is James Maria DeRosa. I am running for lieutenant governor because I believe we live in the most extraordinary of times. And those times requires our sacrifice and the very best of what we have to offer the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you very, very much. Questions, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm very concerned about the overdependence on fossil fuels. But we have to take many tracks. We've got to do better in conservation. We've got to be thinking about more creative ways. I was very somewhat disappointed in the stimulus bill, and that not enough went into things like alternative energy, and a lot of that got cut at the end if you followed it really closely, which is too bad because it was a great opportunity to really build something and do something different. And the green economy, that's where we should be investing our money. You know, everything I ever learned at Oxfam and Peace Corps about how you break the cycle of poverty, how you grow the economy, you don't bribe people with tax breaks. You invest in businesses here. You invest in the future. Those are the kind of companies that should be getting our precious tax dollars.
Raise another one, please.
Yeah, sure.
So you talked about how you want to focus on the whole child and focus less on the MCAS. What would you do specifically to deal with that, given the budgetary concerns and the federal laws?
I mean, part of it is just being a voice and reminding people where are we going with our society. You know, we're preparing our young people to be part of society. We want them to be creative thinkers. We want them to engage. We want them to get ready for this new economy that we live in. I'll tell you a quick story. I actually ended up homeschooling my oldest and my youngest in high school. And to be fair, the school system was great. We cooperated and they still got involved in a lot of activities. But we had a meeting at the school about whether or not we were going to homeschool Anthony. And we're going around the room. I was a little ambivalent, to be honest. And one of the teachers said, well, your child is very disruptive. And I said, oh, I'm really sorry about that. Tell me what? Well, he asks a lot of questions. And I said, well, you know, I teach at the graduate level, teach part-time at Brandeis, based on my Red Sox tickets.
That wasn't for you, that was a text.
Yeah, okay, that's right. But I said, I'm serious. I said, you know, question and inquiry is a really important part of learning. And she said, I know, but she admitted it. I felt bad for her. She said, but I have my plan. We have the MCAS, and we need to stay on course. So I think they paint teachers into a box. I know some people get frustrated with the union. I'm a union guy, very supportive of unions. I think the system is set up that hurts them. I'm not against evaluation. I'm not against testing. I think we can learn some things. It's how we use the test that really concerns me. And what's happening in cities and towns all across Massachusetts, the things that get cut, arts, sports, the things that I think build the whole child. And we've got to fight for that, and it might take time. I know that some of the candidates for governor are talking about more money for the arts, and I certainly will support more for that. I mean, at some point it's about choices. But to me, what's really important about the role of lieutenant governor is that you can be a voice for these issues and keep pounding away at them. Others.
Anyone else? I just wanted to follow the same question I asked Mike. You talked about the end, about school, communities and schools, cutting programs, the arts. So how do you reflect the same to address, as lieutenant governor, the traditional role as being a liaison to the 351 cities and towns? How do you, what do you think cities should do? What else can the state do? If any?
You know, there's a whole host of things. I'll give you a couple of quick answers, and then we can talk longer. One of them, there was a very creative proposal that was going to allow some communities, especially the gateway ones, and Boston's doing pretty well with them, but it was going to allow cities to change the way their taxes code is structured so that they would incent development. There are some really poor cities that it's to their advantage to this, for developers to just let the land sit there. They're speculating because the land properties increase. If you incented the development, they'd actually build something, create jobs, put people to work, make the part of the downtown look nicer. Lots of reasons to do that. I'm not saying cities have to do that, but they should have that option if they want to. That's one very specific example. I think also there are so many laws that have been passed by the state of Massachusetts that we don't always follow up on and support. You know, payment in lieu of taxes. There are some towns that have tremendous amounts of state land. We're like years, 20, 30 years behind what the actual rate is they should get for that. Some of the transportation issues on school busing, that reimbursement rate has fallen behind. The state has this habit of making rules and laws and not always following up. And at the end of the day, it hurts some of the cities and towns throughout Massachusetts. Those are a couple of things. And you know, at the end of the day, it's being accountable for our resources and making some choices. I had to hold this Commonwealth of Massachusetts accountable for $30 million of cost overruns in DTA. They were inappropriately giving benefits. Now I want to make sure everybody gets the benefits that they are entitled to, but we shouldn't be giving benefits to people who aren't supposed to be getting them. I negotiated with the state to change what they were going to do, and now instead of just paying a $30 million fine, they are investing $30 million in the systems. I'll tell you another quick story if I can. I started at USDA, and they wanted to show me a new system that the Commonwealth has for data entry for people that want to participate in some of the programs. They said, oh, it's great. So the people all over the state can go online, and they can tap in information so they can get their benefits. Then it comes into the office, and then we print it out, and then we take it down the hall. My jaw's dropping as you're telling me the story, and then someone else keys in the information. This is a true story. I said, how can that possibly be in this great state of ours? You know, they said, well, the state didn't give us the money, state didn't follow up. Shauna, was it O'Connell? She's a very conservative Republican. She rants and rails, right? Some people know who she is, about DTA, and she talks about the Florida system. I've seen the Florida system. It's a pretty good system. They spent $200 million on that system, making sure that they were being efficient. And that kind of money has not gone to our programs. If the Democratic Party is vulnerable this fall, I think it's around social services. And I have two areas where I can help our party. One is, I've got great experience in social services. I think to balance some of our better candidates that are running for governor, if you look at their backgrounds. But also, I have held the state accountable. We have to be, as Democrats, we need to be holding our whole communities, our state, we have to hold them accountable for how we spend money. That's what we're vulnerable about. I've done that. And we're going to get hit on that, I think, by the other side. You know,
One or two more.
So Karen Polito is going to talk about, she ran a big agency, and she ran a big agency and she gave away license plates, right? And then she's going to talk about the vowel in her last name. Well, I have the vowel at the end of both of my last names. Those are two things that I can go against her. Do I get a closing, or are they 2 more minutes for questions?
If anyone has a quick question?
How are you going to pay for it all?
Well, we have to make some choices. I mean, we have a $30+ billion budget, and too often we talk about what we want to do. I mean, we've got to get better with how we spend our money. But we also can't be afraid to defend government and what it does. And that's another area. We have our backs against the wall. Government is involved in so many aspects of our lives. I talked to some high school students. I said, look, I want you to think from the time you flip on the light in the morning till you go to bed, and all the ways government has been part of your life. The light, the electricity, the water, the roads, your coaches, your teachers, the schools. That's all government. And it provides a platform for success in our economy. And we need to fight for that and defend that and say it's important, not be afraid to talk about government doing some good things. Can we do them better? Yes, we have to do them better. And do we need to look at things like a graduated income tax? Maybe we do. I'm not afraid to talk about those things. I'm not going to start there, though. I think first we need to look at are we being good with the money we spend, because I've got some experience with that.
Thank you. Anything else, Sal? All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'll just do a brief wrap up. I already gave some of it sort of. Let me just say this. I'm kind of at the middle of my life's time horizon. Okay? I worry about my parents and the cost of their health care. I worry about saddling my kids with tremendous debt when they go off to college. I worry about keeping up with the cost of living. I'm a middle class person. When I decided to run for lieutenant governor, something said to me, "What are you, crazy? You know, you're going to give up a secure job. James, what will happen to you?" But that is not the question that I asked when I was deciding whether to run. Right? I was going through this in the fall. The government was shutting down, so I stayed. Politically, probably should have quit on Labor Day. I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. But the question that I asked myself is, what is going to happen to all the people I have met along the way if I don't run? So I am in this race. I'm in this race to stay. I hope you consider me. I hope you consider supporting me at the convention. Thank you very much. It's been great to be here.
So our next candidate is Steve Grossman. He's running for governor. Steve is a small businessman with more than 35 years of experience running a fourth-generation family company in Union Shop. Grossman Marketing Group, a national company located in Somerville, Mass., is a full-service provider of marketing, communication materials, and promotional products. Steve was elected state treasurer in 2010. He oversees, among other agencies, the State Lottery Commission, the School Building Authority, and the Mass Cultural Council, and has worked with community banks to create the Small Business Banking Partnership, an innovative program that has helped generate more than $1 billion in loans to small businesses in the Commonwealth. Steve was the former chairman of the Massachusetts Democratic Party and was the national chairman of President Clinton. During his tenure, Steve launched initiatives to promote women, youth, and people of color into leadership positions across the nation. And as obviously, our president served 2 terms at that time. Steve is a graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Business School. He lives in Newton with his wife, Dr. Barbara Wallace Grossman. They have 3 sons, David, Ben, and Josh, and 4 grandchildren, and he loves ice cream. So come on.
Good to see you. Thank you all, and I'm delighted to be back. First thing I'd like to do, since I'm very proud of the team we have put together, both our team at Treasury and our team at the campaign, is to just publicly thank 2 people. First, Catherine Burton, who has been our Chief of Staff. Hi, Aaron. You cannot have a better colleague. We've been together from day one. It's been 3.5 years. We've gotten a lot accomplished. We made a lot of promises when I ran. We've kept every one of those promises. And when you get a partner like Catherine, it makes it easy. So, Catherine, thank you for your leadership.
She's a great walker.
She's the best.
She makes every meeting.
Second, I want you all to meet Amanda Bailey. Amanda's in the back of the room, so turn around, everybody, and wave at Amanda. Amanda is our organizer, one of our organizers in the city of Boston. We mean to build a strong, vibrant network of activists throughout the city of Boston. And thank you, Amanda, for everything that you do as part of our team. The Boston Globe wrote a piece about me about 10 days ago. And the nicest part of it was they said, Grossman is building an army of activists one handshake at a time. But it's not just one handshake at a time. It's a great team. It's a team that put together almost 24,000 signatures. It's a team that is putting together a team to go to the convention. It's a team that is working every day to win the primary on September 9th and then go on to face Charlie Baker on November 4th, the general election. Let me start with a story. About 3 weeks ago, I got a call from Senator Sal DiDomenico, a dear friend of mine. He said, Steve, I want to do a formal endorsement. I want you to come to Everett, because I want you to see something truly remarkable. So I went over to Everett, and I walked into the Webster School. The Webster School is one of those schools, elementary schools in Everett, that educates 3- and 4-year-old children. Everett has had universal pre-K education since the 1990s, partly because of a great superintendent named Fred Forrester, and partly because the leaders of the city decided to invest in their young people. Everett's a gateway community. There are 54 languages spoken in the Everett Public Schools. I walked into that school and I saw something extraordinary. I walked into the classroom of a wonderful teacher named Crystal Langoni. Sat down on one of those little wooden chairs that you sit down with 3- or 4-year-old kids. They sang the Star-Spangled Banner to me. A little boy grabs my hand, takes me over to a plastic box. It was his Discovery Center. He said, "You got to see my science experiment." It's a 4-year-old little boy. And then he takes me over to a board. He says, "See my picture up there? I want you to see my words." Every child that week was studying the letter L. He said, "That's my favorite word." I said, "The word lobster is your favorite word?" He says, "Yeah, lobster." I said, "Have you ever had a lobster?" He said, "No, I've never had a lobster, but it's my favorite word." What I saw that day in that classroom was a group of 4-year-olds learning how to read with their eyes shining because they were being educated. Every single day in Massachusetts, roughly 30,000 children wake up and they have no place to go at ages 3 and 4. About 75 to 78,000 kids are born every year in Massachusetts. It's 150,000 3- and 4-year-olds, and 30,000 of them have no place to go. It is time for us to finally invest in universal pre-K education in this Commonwealth. It is time to understand that the most important resource we have are our children, and if we don't invest in those young people, they're going to be left behind. They're not going to be reading fluently by the time they finish the 3rd grade, by the time they're 8 years old. They have special needs, they may never catch up. It is time to make those investments. One other quick story. When I was campaigning for state treasurer, because I had spent my life running a business, I had a series of roundtable discussions with small business owners. And in one of those sessions, I sat with a group of business owners over in Orchard Park, and I asked, what are the roadblocks and barriers you face, and how can we in government help lower those roadblocks? Access to capital was the #1 issue they focused on. When I became treasurer, I asked one question: where are our state's reserve deposits? What did I find? 60% of our money, our Commonwealth's money, your money and mine, was sitting in banks in Europe, Australia, and Asia. I said, something's wrong with this picture. Massachusetts taxpayers' money should be in Massachusetts banks to be loaned to credit-worthy small businesses right here in Massachusetts to create jobs. And we created the Small Business Partnership that Jason referred to earlier. We have taken over $350 million of your money, put it into 53 banks, and it's made over 8,000 loans with a value of over $1 billion. And the principal focus on the program is we try to make as many loans as we can to businesses that are owned by women, people of color, immigrants, and veterans, because they are always the ones that are left behind. I'm running for governor to build one Commonwealth that levels the playing field and leaves no one behind. And there's no better way to do that than to put money in the hands of entrepreneurs all over the state, in the neighborhoods of Boston, in our gateway cities, and all over the state, who are going to create the businesses, create the jobs that are going to give this Commonwealth and power this Commonwealth in the years ahead. I appreciate the chance to be with you. For those who are already supporting me, I thank you for your support. I thank you for your commitment to be with me at the convention and beyond. For those who are undecided, I hope to have a conversation with you. If you need more, if you want to talk more, I'm Steve at stevegrossman.com. I return every email, I return every phone call. And between now and June 14th, if you'd like to talk, pick up the phone. I'm happy to have a conversation. I look forward to your questions.
Ask a question?
Mr. Treasurer, if you don't
Please.
mind. I have 2 questions. All right, thanks, Steve.
My parents did not name me Mr. Treasurer, they named me Steve.
2 questions. One, welfare reform. How do we get people off our welfare system, job training, back into the workforce, and problems we had with our EBT card system in terms of the fraud and the criminal activity pertaining to it? Is there a plan? That's the first question, and we'll get to that.
So, did everybody hear the question? And sort of the 2 pieces to that question. One is the issue of welfare reform, and this is a piece of legislation that Aaron and his colleagues are working on now, to try to figure out ways and find ways to do workforce training, to give people the tools and skills they need. And second of all, the question was about EBT cards. In fairness, I don't oversee the Department of Transitional Assistance, overseen by the Executive Office. But I did oversee the procurement of the new EB card technology. And in overseeing that procurement, and we spend a couple of $2 billion in that system, I said, I want to make sure that we deliver to the Department of Transitional Assistance the best technology that money can buy, that we can procure in the open market. Why? Because I thought it was important for them to have the technical tools they need. I'll give you an example. Lottery agents. I oversee the lottery. We have 7,400 lottery agents. If we find a single lottery agent who's trading in EBT cards, who's selling cards for 50 cents on the dollar, or buying them, or trading them, they will lose their license immediately. That license will be pulled. Any merchant who engages in fraudulent behavior will lose that license. They shouldn't be engaging in that behavior. Having said that, look, we have 237,000 people out of work as we're sitting here tonight. 800,000 people are on food stamps. 1 million people will wake up tomorrow morning, don't have a single day of earned sick time. We have a lot of people in this Commonwealth who need help, who are desperate, who are at the margins. And we're a Commonwealth. That's how we define ourselves. So if there is a person, a family, who needs help, who needs food stamps, who needs the SNAP benefits, who needs cash assistance, we should be here to provide that. If people have legitimate needs, how do you work to make sure that more people are given the opportunity to be trained and to work? You use things more effectively. I'm a huge believer in vocational technical education. I think we're going to take kids from our VocaTech schools, our 64 VocaTech schools, and turn it into a dynamic manufacturing, advanced and precision workforce. That's one of the things we're doing in our vocational technical schools. We don't use our vocational technical schools enough in the evening. Kids go home, those schools are empty at night. So I think we should be far more adept at using the resources we have, community colleges and VocaTech schools, with the business community to create a partnership to give those who need the work skills, who need the tools, to be able to go to the workforce and take and hold jobs so that they're not in a position where they need those benefits, who will be able to earn a living wage. Truth in advertising, I'm for the minimum wage at $11 an hour. I'm for indexing it to inflation. And I think we're going to have an opportunity to finally provide 1 million people with earned sick time this fall on the ballot. But to me, the most important thing we can do for those men and women who need that help, who don't have the skills, those 237,000 people who are out of work because their skills don't match the needs of the innovation economy, is to find ways to use our VocaTech schools and our community colleges, working with the business community to define the needs, where are the holes, where are jobs actually being posted that aren't being filled, and train them in those schools and in those community colleges to be able to hold down the jobs, to be able to lift themselves up, and be able to take care of their families and be productive members of this wonderful place we call Massachusetts. I hope that's
Thank you,
something
Steve.
that helps.
No, it is. The second question is, in regards to a little more personal to me, is CPCS, which is the Committee on Public Service. I think the current law says that 75% of the indigent clientele be represented by private counsel and 25% is represented by the public defenders from CPCS. I think the current administration has, in the past, suggested legislation within the state budget to increase the amount of indigent clients going directly to CPCS to make it more maybe 50-50 and cut down the private work, the private attorney caseload. What's your view on that?
I think it's a balancing act. I think that to the extent that they're represented by private attorneys, continue to be that way, but I think there's a case to be made that those who work in the public defender public system can do that as well. So it's a balancing act. I'd be happy to take a look at it. I'm not sure what the right mix is, but I'm certainly something I'd be willing to look at. Aaron, this is an issue that you must know pretty well, given the role that you play. What's your view on this, and what should the right mix be? And if you were advising me as the next governor, you come into the third floor corner office, and I ask you, what's the right approach?
When he thought he was going on a boat.
I mean, it's something that we debated back and forth, I'd say 2 years ago, 3 years budgets ago, And in working with some of the members, people that work through CPCS, I was able to gain an understanding of it. But there does need to be a balance. But there is a system that works but needs tweaking and some maybe a shave and a haircut kind of discussion. But it's not something that is as broken, I believe, as the current administration was presenting. And I think that's why we ended up, from the legislative standpoint, we ended up pushing back, on many of those discussions.
One of the things I believe is that those of us who are elected officials, whether you're treasurer, state representative, or governor, need to be better listeners. My father once said, Steve, you were born with one mouth and two ears. Try to use them in that proportion. Be a better listener. There is an amazing amount of talent and knowledge and expertise out there in virtually every area: transportation, housing, early childhood education. And to the extent that we in government open ourselves up to citizen activism, to the extent that I as governor have made a commitment already that as governor in the first 6 months, I'm going to go to each one of the 40 Senate districts in the state, hold a regional town meeting like this, or a bigger meeting, and say, let's have at it. Let's talk about the things that can improve the quality of life. The issues in Pittsfield are not going to be the same issues as they are in Taunton or in the neighborhoods of Boston. The issues here in the North End are not going to be the same issues as they are in Dorchester Lower Mills. And to have those conversations and to be informed, you build citizen activism from the bottom up, not from the top down or from the outside in. And we're always better informed and always going to make better decisions and be better leaders when we have the benefit of the thinking of grassroots activists. And that's what campaigns are all about. That's what this campaign is all about. And if there's one thing I want to be known for in this campaign, the one thing I want you to know me for, is that Steve Grossman wants to be known as the progressive job creator who's going to send Charlie Baker back to Swampscott as a twice-defeated candidate for governor on the 4th of November. That's what I want to be known for. Charlie Baker is going to come at our Democratic nominee, and I'd like to be that nominee on two issues. First, he's the job creator. Let's understand, Charlie Baker built a company, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, by double-digit compound increases in premiums that made healthcare all but unaffordable for a significant number of people in the state. He's going to own that company and what he did to healthcare premiums. Second, he's going to talk about how he can run government. He's going to point to the Weld and Cellucci administration as to what he did. He's going to point to the things that went wrong during the last 8 years. I'm going to tell you, I was proud to come into state government as your state treasurer, to take over the state pension system, which has record levels of assets, to take over unclaimed property and record amounts of money returned to the people of this Commonwealth, to take over the Clean Water Trust and to put more money into clean water and drinking water, and a whole variety of things along the way. So I am very proud of what we've done in government, particularly in areas that no treasurer really went into before, which is the whole issue of creating jobs. The Mass School Building Authority is something that I am particularly proud of. You asked earlier about Boston, and in Boston, the Mass School Building Authority is already partnering with Marty Walsh and his leadership team at City Hall to do more things and to finance more building of schools than has happened in a long time. We're building a new Dearborn School in Roxbury. It's an early college, 6 through 12 STEM academy in the middle of Roxbury. A new school hasn't been built in Boston in years, not since the Mass School Building Authority was created. And if you think that's a model for how we can build, consistent with other towns that need resources, because there's only a limited amount of money, and that's the kind of partnership I think the state ought to have. City of Boston, its educational resources, its schools, whether it's new roofs, new boilers, new windows, or new places for kids to go to school and learn and grow and develop and flourish. That is what the promise of this next 4 years can be, building on the foundation that Deval Patrick has created.
We have one quick question here.
Sure. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for supporting the fossil fuel divestment bill. It would make us the first state to divest from fossil fuels. As treasurer, that's so important for you to endorse that. I'm wondering what other things you will do to make sure that we confront climate change. Julie kind of talked a lot about how we're going to deal with adaptation. We have no hope if we don't reduce rapidly the amount of fossil fuels we're using. So what will you do for the state for that?
Well, a whole variety of things. First of all, we've got great models. You see what's going on in Salem. You see what Mayor Kim Driscoll has done with electric cars and building out the electric car grid. We've got to accelerate our movement into electric cars. Second of all, we've got to fully fund the governor's package, and the legislature fully funded about half of it in the last budget. We've got to fund the rest of it because that package is hugely important. New rail cars with the T, deferred maintenance, the Green Line of Somerville and Medford, South Coast Rail. If we do that, and if we build housing, apartments, low and moderate and middle income housing for young professionals. We don't have enough middle income housing. We're driving young professionals out of Massachusetts because they can't spend 40 to 50% of their income on housing. So we've got to build far more housing around transportation hubs so that people get in public transportation and go to work, get out of their cars, reduce the use of fossil fuels, more energy efficiency, more energy audits, particularly for low and moderate income people, and help them retrofit their apartments. The governor, and final point, the governor is now in the middle of doing a retrofit on 700 state buildings in 700 days, which is going to reduce the cost of energy by $43 million or 25%. So the whole range of things, continuing credits for fossil, reduce fossil fuel, continuing credits for solar and wind, use of energy efficiency, public transportation, smart growth, electric cars, those are just a few of the things we can do. And if Massachusetts sends a message to the country that we're going to continue to be the #1 state in that arena, we will continue to create jobs. Last point, because of all the things that we've done in the last 8 years, there are 80,000 jobs in 5,500 companies in clean tech, and it's growing 12% a year. We're going to create 80 to 100,000 new jobs in clean tech in the next 6 to 10 years. Those are the jobs that every one of us want. Those are the jobs our kids want. Those are the jobs we're going to create. That's the kind of governor I'd like to be. I appreciate the chance to be with you. I hope for those who have not yet committed, you'll consider supporting me at the convention. For those who have, I'm deeply grateful. I look forward to working with you every step of the way, all the way to September 9th and to November 4th. Thank you for having me.